June 20th, 2019. A worried father calls the Salt Lake City Police Department from his home in California.
Yeah, I'd like to get, if possible, have a wellness check done on my daughter. I've been trying to get a hold of her all week. I was just wondering if I could have somebody maybe go by her house and check on her.
Mackenzie Lewick, a 23-year-old college student, had just returned to Salt Lake City after spending a week at home for a family funeral. Her last text to her mother was simple: "Landed. Love you, Mama." There was no hint that it might be her final message. When her parents dropped her off at the airport, they expected to see her again when the semester ended. But Mackenzie never made it home after her late-night flight, and as days passed without contact, their worst fears began to unfold.
Last time we heard from her, she got off the plane coming back from LA. It was 1 a.m. She was going to grab an Uber and go home, but that's the last I've heard from her.
So 1 a.m. this morning?
No, 1 a.m. Monday morning. So we've been trying to get a hold of her all week. Usually it's unlike her to return a call, but it goes straight to voicemails.
Mackenzie, a dedicated student, was now missing. The investigation that followed would unravel a chilling mystery. CCTV footage, phone records, and police interrogations revealing the brutal fate that she met in the early hours of June 17th. Join us at The Decoder as we trace the timeline of Mackenzie Lewick's final moments and uncover the truth behind her tragic disappearance. This case takes us to Salt Lake City, the capital of Utah. With a violent crime rate of 9.79 per 1,000 residents, Salt Lake City has a crime rate higher than that of Mackenzie's native Los Angeles by 1 in 1,000. But no one expects that 1 in 1,000 to make a difference, and no one expects to be that one. Mackenzie was in Salt Lake City to finish her studies at the University of Utah, just 2 semesters away from earning her degree. Living with 2 roommates, her life seemed typical for a college student. But after a flight back from California, where she attended the funeral of her grandmother, her communication stopped cold. Her parents, Diane and Greg Lewick, had grown increasingly anxious after their last message from Mackenzie. Diane didn't see the text until she woke up the next morning, and when she responded, she noticed something strange. Her reply wasn't delivered through iMessage. It had gone through as a regular SMS. Mackenzie's phone was offline. At first, the Lewicks brushed it off, but as time stretched on and their calls continued going straight to voicemail, worry crept in.
Please record your message.
By June 20th, after hearing from none of Mackenzie's friends or roommates, her parents decided to act.
And does anyone have a key?
I don't know. The landlord may. I don't know of anybody that would be there besides her roommates that would have a key. You know what? I take that back. She said she dropped one behind the mailbox, but she could never get it out. So there may be one back there. Somebody can fish it out, but I don't know if she ever got it out or not.
The police's first step was to carry out a wellness check at Mackenzie's address in Salt Lake City, on the assumption that she'd made it back there from the airport.
You know where your landlord lives? Does he live on the premises, or how we can get a hold of him to maybe get a key or something like that if we need it? Yes, the key to the apartment so that we might be able to go in there just in case she is in there injured or something like that.
They tried to contact the landlord, but received no reply.
I don't think University of Utah is going to give us any information. Like, we could probably call up there and see if she's supposed to be in a class. Yeah, she's enrolled. They could go check her classes to see if she's there, but this is her car. And landlord's not answering his phone, so I just left him a message.
Eventually, one of Mackenzie's roommates let them into the house. He said that Mackenzie had asked him to take care of her cat while she was in California, and that she'd said she was returning to Salt Lake City that week, but he didn't know exactly when. On a search of the property, the police didn't find the suitcase Mackenzie had traveled with. Her car was still in the driveway, and there were no signs of foul play. The implication was clear: she'd never made it home. There were other concerning signs. She hadn't been seen in class all week, and she was due to submit an online midterm exam by midnight that night, June 20th, and she hadn't yet logged into the portal. Alongside school, Mackenzie worked at a biological testing company, and her colleagues there couldn't confirm that she'd turned up to work since going to California. The police also reviewed surveillance footage from the airport at the time her flight was scheduled to land, 1:35 in the morning. She was listed on the manifest, meaning that she had indeed gotten on the flight as planned, which aligned with her text to her mom upon landing. And the police managed to pick her out on CCTV leaving the airport and getting into a Lyft car at 2:40 a.m. Meanwhile, Greg was doing his own investigation into his daughter's life, looking for any clues as to her whereabouts. Mackenzie shared her bank accounts with her parents, and upon looking into them, Greg found an unusual transaction dated June 10th in the amount of $300. And lately, she hadn't been asking her parents to assist her with tuition payments or rent, and she'd recently bought new furniture. Greg didn't know where this money came from, if it was just her earnings from the biological testing company job, or if it came from somewhere else. Mackenzie's brother knew that she had been seeing men through the Tinder app, and that she might have a boyfriend who lived in Park City, but he didn't know this possible boyfriend's name. Nonetheless, it was a lead. One of her sorority sisters also corroborated that she'd been seeing men through Tinder and said Mackenzie had confessed a desire to become a stripper.
I think she was trying to almost gain confidence and security in herself. I think she realized she was really shy and she wanted to be more outgoing and meet people.
Greg contacted AT&T to look into Mackenzie's phone records. On June 17th, between 1:50 and 1:58 a.m., so after Mackenzie had landed in Salt Lake City, she had texted one number 8 times. The content of these messages was not available, which meant it could be a lead or just a dead end. Maybe this was just Mackenzie ordering her rideshare. The police listed Mackenzie as a missing person and sent a text message to her number saying, "You are an adult and have the right to not communicate with whomever you want. I simply need to verify your safety. We will not communicate your location or anything else unless you give us permission. Please give me a call."
Kenzie Lueck's family and friends trying to reach her on social media. They posted this video hoping she might see it.
Everyone is out looking for you around the country, and they all want you to know that we're advocating for you, we're fighting for you, and we're going to bring you home.
In cases like these, with a young person reported missing, it wasn't unusual for them simply to have run off, needing some time away from everything. Mackenzie's family could only hope that this was the case.
You know, she might be upset, but come and just call somebody and say, "I'm fine, quit looking for me."
One thing that we wanted to talk about is she texted her family that she landed at the airport. She wouldn't have done that if she wanted to purposely disappear.
On June 21st, the police widened the investigation to Mackenzie's known connections. They uncovered an ex-boyfriend who dated Mackenzie until April 2018. He told them that a few weeks after the relationship had ended, she'd sent him a Snapchat video of her having sex with 2 other people, and he'd blocked her. One of Mackenzie's sorority sisters had something interesting to say, that Mackenzie had had a job interview lined up at Exotic Kitty, which was a gentleman's club. The investigators also spoke to one of her male friends who said that he and Mackenzie had been casually dating on and off since September 2018, but had never been exclusive, and had had plans to meet up when Mackenzie got back from California. This friend said that Mackenzie was a regular sugar baby, meaning she connected with men, sugar daddies, who would give her gifts and money. This was maybe her mystery source of income. She used the dating app Tinder as well as the site Seeking Arrangement for this purpose. The site's homepage reads, "Seeking Arrangement delivers a new way for relationships to form and grow. Sugar babies and sugar daddies or mamas both get what they want when they want it." Mackenzie had last logged into this website on June 16th, a few hours before her disappearance. The friend also told police that she'd connected with a guy on Tinder about 3 weeks ago, but didn't know any details about the mystery man.
I have no idea what happened to her, where she is. nobody does, and it's pretty terrifying.
A mixed picture of Mackenzie was emerging, a side to her life that her parents hadn't known anything about. Born on March 8, 1996 in the beachside LA suburb of El Segundo, she was the second of her parents' 4 children and their only daughter. At high school, she was on the swim and water polo teams and helped to start a club for breast cancer awareness. She continued her feminist thinking at the University of Utah, where she was a positive and supportive sisterly presence in her sorority, Alpha Chi Omega. The sorority's charity work focused on domestic violence awareness and prevention, and on Facebook, Mackenzie posted to celebrate the anniversary of women's suffrage. She'd had a difficult year, as according to one friend, she'd been sexually assaulted in 2018 and was having a hard time dealing with it, seeing a therapist and taking medication for depression. Mackenzie was raised in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and Salt Lake City is the faith's headquarters. Mackenzie wasn't devout, however, and enjoyed going out to bars with her friends and apparently meeting men on Tinder. She'd also recently come out to her family as bisexual, though her friends and family weren't aware of any women she was seeing. She came from a healthcare background, with her dad Greg working in healthcare logistics and administration. Mackenzie herself was majoring in pre-nursing and kinesiology, the study of human movement. She hoped to go to nursing or medical school after her graduation, planned for May 2020, but she'd never make it to graduation.
Over the last couple days, I've spoken with Greg Lueck. I can feel the heartache and the pain and the suffering in his voice as we spoke. And my commitment to Greg was that we would do everything within our power, the Salt Lake City Police Department, to bring Mackenzie home.
Eventually, the police managed to track down the details of the Lyft ride Mackenzie had taken from the airport. Information in her email inbox showed she'd been picked up at 2:40 a.m. on June 17th, and then dropped off at 16 East Center Street, North Salt Lake at 2:59 a.m., 19 minutes later. This location was a park, Hatch Park, with several buildings nearby. There was no obvious reason for Mackenzie to be there.
Confirmed that this was the location where she was last seen, Hatch Park here in North Salt Lake. Investigators now revealing she met someone else after getting dropped off.
Detectives have spoken with the Lyft driver and learned that Mackenzie was met at Hatch Park by an individual in a vehicle. Mackenzie did not appear to be in any type of distress.
On the 25th, we learned about a disturbing problem with the cameras at Hatch Park in North Salt Lake, which could have filmed Mackenzie getting in that car the morning of June 17th.
Hatch Park doesn't have any cameras. We have some dummy cameras.
Meanwhile, the police had opened a tip line, and it was flooded with information. People reported sightings of Mackenzie in the company of various men, including one on June 21st in a liquor store. The witness claimed to have seen her buying alcohol with a white man and described her as wearing a white shirt with jeans and having a tattoo on her arms above each elbow, one with words and the other with an arrow. Mackenzie did indeed have tattoos, but not these tattoos. Rather, she had a tattoo of a star on her back. These false sightings muddied the waters and made it difficult to determine when the last sighting of Mackenzie actually was. Had she been wandering around Salt Lake City all week? Or was that fateful Lyft ride to the park in North Salt Lake the last moment before something terrible? The only one who could meaningfully answer this question was the Lyft driver. Lyft's privacy policies meant that investigators had to get a search warrant to access Mackenzie's account details, and by the time they spoke to the person who had driven her that fateful night, it was June 22nd, and she had been officially missing for 2 days. When they questioned the driver, he said he dropped Mackenzie as planned at the park in North Salt Lake, where she'd been picked up by a friend in a car that looked like a Subaru.
I remember I was actually going to turn off my my app and go home, but right then I got another order to go pick somebody up downtown. So I just went to go pick up that person. They seemed to know each other really well because think all I heard was, "How are you doing? How are your trip?" Just kind of basic greetings. The situation seemed very safe. She obviously knew the person that she was getting into the car with.
None of Mackenzie's friends had come forward to say they'd picked her up that night, though her status as missing was widely reported. Her other friends were speaking on the news.
Where could she have gone? Her car has not been moved. Things aren't adding up.
Meanwhile, time since Mackenzie's disappearance was stretching on. She'd been booked on a flight back to LA on June 23rd for a family wedding, and the police met the plane to determine if she was on it, but she wasn't. And when her bank records were produced under subpoena, they discovered she hadn't made any transactions since the Lyft payment in the early hours of June 17th. So whatever had happened to her had likely happened that very same night, possibly at Hatch Park. The investigators set up a geofence for the area of Hatch Park in the early hours of June 17th, which registered 6 devices entering that vicinity in the time frame. One device pinged several times in the area, a device belonging neither to Mackenzie nor the Lyft driver. It belonged instead to a man named Ayoola Ajayi. Ayoola's phone had pinged in the same area as Mackenzie's right before 3 a.m., when Mackenzie's phone was turned off between 2:58 and 2:59 a.m. More damningly, phone records showed that Mackenzie and Ayoola had been having conversations over the TextMe app. This was enough for the police to apply for a search warrant of Ayoola's residence. On June 25th, the police made contact with him. Though his lawyer advised him not to, he sat down willingly with the police. He claimed he only wanted to clear up a mistake.
You're not under arrest, you're not being detained, you can leave anytime you want to, okay?
It just doesn't make sense. I want to get to the root of it too.
Yeah.
Because when you said my IP is showing, that means something is wrong.
AJ worked in IT, meaning he understood the significance of his geolocation and the way they triangulated his proximity to Mackenzie on the night she disappeared. He claimed he wanted to clear up any confusion, and he mentioned his alibi right out of the starting gate.
So, I have security camera in front of the house, and then I have one inside the house. So that's my baby. Remember, she was with me on that day. So according to the video, she was with me.
He said his baby mama's first name was Michelle and that he didn't know her last name. She was 8 months pregnant with his child, but they weren't together. AJ seemed to feel guilt, however, about using the seeking arrangement site.
So I have PTSD and anxiety. I just need to talk to someone whenever I'm alone and I'm freaking out.
So this is a seeking arrangement website?
Yes.
Okay.
So, and I go through the whole everything. I can't see anyone that matched that profile and that matched that picture.
Okay.
But if you see, you can see most of them are in Seattle, Ogden, everywhere around the world.
Okay.
So I never even try to meet them. I just need someone to talk to whenever I'm freaking out, so to calm down. So even some of them are in Washington, D.C. And one in Logan. So all of them, all we just do is to talk. And if I met her from there, I'm positive that I probably don't want to meet her because all this is not revealed to my baby mama, and I don't want her to know about it, so I never meet any of them.
He couldn't deny that he'd been using the website since the investigators had concrete evidence. He did, however, deny meeting Mackenzie through the site. But why had they texted outside of the site on June 16th, only 9 hours before she went missing? AJ claimed that she must have found his phone number on his profile and texted him the question mark to ask if he was interested.
So you're still saying that that's the only text, that's the only messages you got from her, right?
That I can remember. So, but for her to just send me a question mark, so there's a possibility that I've talked to her in the past.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you did this or you were involved in it at all. I'm just saying that someone at your house or someone was using your IP address, that's all.
Yeah.
Just trying to get to the bottom of it.
I would like to do that because I'm freaking out already. I have anxiety and I have PTSD, so that's why I've been calling you, like, please let me help if any way I can help. Even my lawyer don't want me to come here right now.
He claimed he didn't save numbers in his phone, and so he didn't recall if he'd talked to Mackenzie before. When she asked for a photo, he sent her a selfie, and she never responded to it.
Earlier you said we could take your phone and download it. Are you still willing to do that or no?
I just need to call my lawyer and see if it's okay, because I want to help as much as I can.
Sure.
But she's saying that some police just want to pin it on someone, that they can pin it on me.
AJ said he downloaded all the online evidence the police wanted, including the footage from his home security camera, which he claimed placed him at home all the early hours of June 17th, but wasn't willing to hand it over.
AJ, the only reason, you can understand if this was your sister or something, or your mom, we'd be working just as hard to find her for you, okay? This family is in that same boat. We just want to do everything we can, and just because you've chatted with her, you've texted back and forth twice or however many times, and it's bouncing off your IP address, we just want to cross every avenue, make sure that people aren't involved, people who are staying with you, people might be parked outside your house using your Wi-Fi. We just want to make sure.
AJ excused the coincidences as best he could. He wasn't under arrest. However, at the end of the interview, police confiscated his cell phones before allowing him to leave. And on the following day, they executed a search warrant at his house.
I have the search warrant in hand. Can I borrow your phone then to call my lawyer?
He was broadly cooperative, but he questioned why they confiscated his phone as evidence. They then proceeded to search the house.
Hello? Salt Lake Police, can you come out, please?
They found another occupant of the house, a guest who was staying in AJ's spare bedroom through an Airbnb booking.
Hi, it's the police department.
Okay.
Are you renting this room?
Yes.
Okay. We are going to be serving a warrant on this house, so we need... Is there anyone else here?
Just me.
If you want to just grab your wallet.
I got it in my wallet.
Okay, we'll need you to come out then.
Okay.
He'd only arrived from the airport that morning and had no idea why the police were suddenly conducting a search on his host's house. Other than this guest, there was no one in the house, and there was no sign of Mackenzie.
House clear, just the one Airbnb guy in the whole place.
The police told AJ he was free to leave.
You're free to leave. I'm not detaining you, so you can leave whenever you want.
You want to check in Friday?
You got it crazy?
No, I just don't want you guys to use anything when I'm gone, because I gave them my phone and they used that against me before, so I just want to make sure that you guys approve everything before I do it.
You're free to leave when you want.
Any idea where you want to go?
I don't even know. I don't have my phone or my card, so I have no destination.
Okay. Again, and I don't have a time frame, right? I don't know if so.
Could be 10 minutes, could be a little bit longer.
Yeah, so
I would assume you'd want to be here.
Yeah, so you don't have. You're sitting right there. I have no problem with you sitting in the shade on the porch if you want to. That looks miserable.
Yeah, if you guys have my phone without my permission, and if they give it to you guys when you are here, and I can see what you guys are doing with it, that would make more sense. But they took it with them. I don't know what's going on.
And I don't either.
So I just think that's not fair.
AJ left, he said, to go to the local library. Undercover officers followed him and learned that he didn't go to the library. He went to a Smith's grocery and the bank inside it. There, he bought a pay-as-you-go cell phone. A few hours later, after having gathered the evidence at the house, the police came to detain him.
What's going on, man?
Detectives are ready to talk to you about everything that's going on real fast, so if you want to come, I'll give you right back to the house real quick.
But there's Fox News over there.
I know, I'm going to drive you back in my car. It's a Camry, so...
But we'll stay away from the news.
Yeah, we're not going to go by the news.
But I don't want my face on the news.
I will do that so it does, okay? So stand up real quick.
We're just going to... Oh, are you arresting me or something?
No. Stand up.
Then why you're going to be detained for a little bit.
You're being detained, but just for a second, okay? I got to put you in handcuffs just while we're driving.
Per policy, we're
just going to go talk to detectives for a little bit.
The police confiscated his new cell phone as evidence. It was 7 days after Mackenzie was reported missing, and 10 days after the last sighting of her alive. So what did the police find at AJ's residence that was damning enough for them to detain him? They found multiple knives, a hammer, and a gun. In his car, they found dirt and debris. They also discovered a lot of electronics including a router and a Wi-Fi mesh system. All these electronic items, including AJ's phones and computer, would be forensically examined.
Our detectives collected multiple items of evidence throughout the night that are in the process of being tested and analyzed. This will take some time.
But the most telling evidence wasn't technological at all. The investigators found a freshly dug patch of earth in the back of AJ's yard and heard from his neighbors that on June 17th he'd been burning something there that had given off a foul smell.
The smell of gas was outrageous. And I thought maybe I was in my bedroom and I smelled it through my window and I thought maybe it was my motorhome. And so I came outside to make sure, and there's this smell in the air that was just almost rancid. It was just really disgusting smelling.
A canine unit was brought in to search for human remains, and the dog detected something.
Tara Chatterton says she was hired to clean the house, but quit after just one day after discovering it bristled with cameras.
How many cameras did he have in the house, and where were they placed?
I figured around 8 to 10.
Wow.
But there was one in every single room for sure, but there was several in the master bedroom.
And where were the cameras facing in the master bedroom?
Towards the bed.
She says the accused killer specifically asked her to bring her 12-year-old daughter Cherish with her when she cleaned the house. Tara says AJ had a certain charm, but reminded her of notorious serial killer Ted Bundy.
I just knew in my gut that I should not go back. I could just feel it. I just knew that there was something wrong with it.
So they interviewed AJ a second time, and this time they stopped being so empathetic. The police pushed him on the limits of coincidence. The locations of his phone and Mackenzie's was an accident, he argued, or a mistake. He kept his Wi-Fi open without password protection for the sake of his Airbnb guests. This was why there was confusion around his IP address being used. So he said,
AJ, I just told you that your phone records and the location put you up at the meet. Do you think, honestly, and expect me to believe that you ended that conversation and somehow you and her location end up in the exact same spot?
Oh, I'm not doubting you. If I see that too, if I'm in your case, I would be asking myself, what are you asking me right now?
It's not a miraculous question.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay.
Stuff doesn't just happen.
No.
Yes, I agree with you.
I'm telling you to explain that. And so far, you have not.
Well, how do I explain something I don't know?
Are you saying you don't know or you don't remember? Because those are two different things, AJ.
He had no answer on this supposed coincidence, and he wasn't convincing. When the interview ended, the police had confirmed some things, that AJ had used the seeking arrangements site and that he'd talked to Mackenzie over text. But AJ hadn't confessed to anything more incriminating. He insisted he'd been home on the night of the 16th and the morning of the 17th, and he claimed he'd never met Mackenzie in person. He did confess to having lit a fire in his backyard on the 17th, but said he'd put it out as soon as a neighbor told him he wasn't allowed to be burning things because of pollution restrictions and that he needed to call the fire department. This same neighbor told the police that the fire had smelled like nothing she'd ever smelled before and that she'd told him to call the fire department or she would. AJ said he'd only been burning some trash and maybe some clothes, but he insisted the clothes were his own. He explained the dirt and debris in the floor of his car as the result of recent work on his yard, saying he'd recently planted 20 or so flowers and the debris was from the fertilizer. Apparently, he was also in the habit of killing goats for food and burning them instead of skinning them, but he hadn't done that for a while. This, according to AJ, was the explanation for any blood they might find in the bottom of the fridge in his garage. But it was not goat remains they found in his backyard. No, instead they found a human bone, charred muscle tissue, and part of a human scalp with hair. There was also a cell phone. AJ's fire had not been a simple exercise in burning trash. It had been disposal of evidence.
This is one of the most difficult phone calls I've ever made, as both Greg and his wife Diana were devastated and heartbroken by this news.
AJ's car smelled strongly of gas, and they discovered a red gas can that looked identical to the one he'd been seen purchasing at 9 a.m. on June 17th, the morning after Mackenzie's disappearance. There was also surveillance evidence of AJ's car in those fateful early hours. In this footage, AJ's Kia can be seen heading towards Hatch Park at 2:48 a.m. At 2:59 a.m., the white lift vehicle drives away from the park, and about 10 seconds later, so does AJ's Kia. Only now, Mackenzie was in it. Following the interview, the police had released AJ and he went to stay with a friend, but it wouldn't be for long. The physical evidence against him was mounting, and early on June 28th, the samples from his backyard were confirmed to match Mackenzie Lueck's DNA, and the police were prepared to detain Ayoola Ajayi on suspicion of murder. A SWAT team was deployed to the friend's apartment where AJ was staying. Meanwhile, one of the officers called him to encourage him to surrender.
AJ, you're being a little bit unreasonable, dude. I'm a man, you're a man, we're grown men.
If you want to arrest me, I would come down, and you can arrest me. I will be there. I can see your car. I would come down.
Okay, come on down then.
You're not trying to... Are you planning to arrest me?
Will you come down, please?
No, only if you tell me that you want to arrest me, then
I'm not arresting you. No, I'm not. I am not. You just come down.
If you're not trying to arrest me, then I don't want to talk to you.
If I'm not trying to arrest you, then you don't want to talk to me?
Yes.
What if I was trying to arrest you? Do you want to come down and talk to me?
Sure.
Okay, I'm trying to arrest you. Come down and talk to me.
You have your arrest warrant with you?
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks.
The officer called AJ's bluff. AJ came downstairs and the SWAT team arrested him without incident.
We are filing charges of aggravated murder, aggravated kidnapping, and desecration of a body in the homicide of Mackenzie Lueck. The man charged is Ayoola Ajayi. I will not be saying the killer's name again.
So who actually was Ayoola Ajayi, and what did he have to do with Mackenzie Lueck? Born in 1988, AJ was raised in Nigeria but had lived in Utah since at least 2009, when he'd started at Utah State University on a student visa. He'd returned to the university 3 separate times, but never earned his degree. He'd also been with the Utah National Guard from 2014 to 2015, when he was discharged with an entry-level separation. He did not complete basic training and didn't receive any certificates, leaving him ineligible to be employed on any tours of duty. He was discharged for medical reasons, potentially glaucoma. However, his LinkedIn page, which has since been taken down, listed that he was an IT specialist for the U.S. Army from 2014 to 2016, and that he had experience working in IT for Dell, Goldman Sachs, and Microsoft. He had attempted to start a modeling career, describing himself on his model management page as tall, buffed, funny. I am a victim, romantic, violent, and character actor.
Evie Keener owns a modeling and talent agency in Salt Lake City that represents dozens of beautiful young women. Evie says she met the accused killer here in Salt Lake City, Utah, at a networking event for models and their agents last summer. She says the suspect approached her about signing with her modeling agency, but she says there was something about him that creeped her out.
On the surface, he seemed perfect. He seemed very smart, very good looking.
But after attending several networking parties, 31-year-old Ayoola Ajayi began reaching out to Evie on social media. She instinctively sensed danger.
He wanted to sign on with my agency, and I did not feel comfortable having him in the same room with my young models. So I just listened to my gut, and I didn't have anything further to do with him.
AJ self-published a book on Amazon in 2018 called Forge Identity. It was a fictional story about a boy witnessing a friend and neighbor be burned alive by a violent mob. It was suggested that this book was based on a true story. He was also married to a woman named Tanisha Ajayi, who lived in Dallas, Texas.
I first met him, he was a sweet person, he was a good person. He used to send me money down here for my kids.
They'd met through a family friend and got married when he was 23 and she was 27. They'd never lived together, and she hadn't spoken to him in years.
I just stopped talking to him because that was like free from my life. The stuff that he was doing, it was changing my life.
According to Tanisha, AJ had lost his temper when she refused to come to Utah to live with him and threatened to kill her if she wouldn't.
Because he threatened me, and I have kids to live for. He got aggressive, and he was saying that he was going to kidnap me. I just left him alone.
She said he once tried to tie her up with a phone cord, and she had to jump through a window to escape.
I was trying to get out the window. We was at his friend's house, and he closed the window down, and I jumped through the window, and he had a butcher knife. He was trying to stab me with the knife. I was trying to grab the knife out his hand because he was trying to stab me in my hand, but I had to try to grab the knife out his hand, and it cut me. I had all these cuts.
AJ refused to sign divorce papers, and as a result, they remained married. This wasn't the only violent blip in AJ's past. Though he had no convictions on his record, he'd been investigated for a sex offense in 2014 and again in March 2018, just over a year before Mackenzie's disappearance, when he was accused of sexually assaulting a woman he met on a dating app.
This is the back door leading down to the basement, where a contractor says the suspect asked him to build a soundproof room, complete with a secret door, hooks on the concrete wall, and also a fingerprint lock.
Investigations into Mackenzie's phone showed
Brian Wolf could only sit and watch as police announced the end of the search for Mackenzie Lewick.
Holy crap.
All week on the news, he kept seeing pictures of a house that he was just inside a couple months ago. Now he sees the mugshot of the man he met inside.
I've never ever had anybody ask me anything like this. 100% that man that they arrested is the man I met, guaranteed. I'm shaking right now. My heart's pounding. I'm almost about to cry. It's scary. I feel sorry for that girl.
He says murder suspect Ayoola Ajayi,
we just said to put his name down as AJ,
wanted him to build a secret soundproof room in the basement right here with a thumbprint lock and hooks hanging from the walls.
Just said that his girlfriend was coming into town and needed to get it done before she got there because she was a Mormon girl. She didn't know he drank, so he wanted to hide her alcohol from her. And I was like, well, why do you need it to be soundproof? I told a lot of people that I thought something weird was going on over there, and it turns out there obviously was. He was adamant about getting it done really fast, and money was no object, and he needed to get it done before his girlfriend came into town.
He says he still isn't sure what AJ actually wanted the room for.
Well, I could totally do it, but I never would have done it. There's no way.
But whatever it was, he refused to be a part of it.
I just had a gut feeling that the room he wanted built wasn't appropriate for anything. It wasn't something where somebody would want to be in that room alone with him. And even my nephew, when we got out to the truck, we both looked at each other and was like, that was weird, right? And he was like, yeah, that was hella weird. We're not doing this job, right? And I was like, hell no.
AJ's history only heightened suspicion, and further searches of his property uncovered damning evidence. The police found clothing with bleach and bloodstains on it, as well as a bloodied shower curtain. AJ was already under arrest for her murder, but they still had to find her body. And once again, it would be AJ's phone records that proved the key, placing him at Logan Canyon on June 25th. A scenic location popular with hikers, climbers, and skiers, it was an hour and 20 minutes drive from Salt Lake City, and remote enough that it registered as a likely place for AJ to have disposed of Mackenzie's remains. On July 2nd, the investigators began a search of this area. It was on July 3rd, just after midday, that they made a breakthrough, the horrifying discovery of human remains. It was Mackenzie's body, just as they'd feared. She was buried in a shallow grave covered with some brush. Her hands had been zip-tied behind her back, and her body was partially burned. There was blunt force trauma to the head, and her killer had made an attempt to bury her body, but not well enough. Finally, on July 10th, Ayoola was formally charged with aggravated murder, aggravated kidnapping, obstructing justice, and desecration of a human body. What he'd done to Mackenzie Lewick was both awful and awfully simple. He'd arranged to meet with her after connecting on the Seeking Arrangements site back in 2018. They agreed to meet up after Mackenzie got back from California, and she had her Lyft driver drop her off at Hatch Park. She even acknowledged the strangeness of this to her Lyft driver. Making small talk, they commented on something being strange, and she said, "Not as strange as where you are dropping me off in the middle of a park so late at night." But this was according to her plan with AJ, who would pick her up there and take her to his house. And that's what he did, but she couldn't have known what he really planned. When they got to his house, he tied her hands behind her back with zip ties and started to choke her with his hands. When this wasn't enough to kill her, he used a belt and hit her on the side of the head. According to the autopsy, it was this blow that ultimately killed her. On June 17th, he attempted to burn her body in his backyard, but was prevented by his neighbor, who questioned the smell. Instead, he buried Mackenzie there and threw some of her belongings into the Jordan River. They were later recovered on the bank of the river. These included her student ID for the University of Utah and some items of her clothing, such as her bra, which had burn marks on it. The police visited him for the first time on June 24th. On the next day, June 25th, he dug her body up and moved it to Logan Canyon in the hope it wouldn't be found there. But even this IT worker had underestimated the digital traces he would leave. And he had indeed been trying to cover his tracks, even from the beginning. Because this wasn't a sexual encounter turned suddenly sour. This was premeditated. AJ's home was full of security cameras, but he turned them off before leaving to meet Mackenzie. He wasn't shy about recording his sexual encounters. No, he turned them off because he had a far darker purpose in mind. He did the same when he moved Mackenzie's body, turning his home security cameras off for the duration of the time his cell phone was triangulated heading to Logan Canyon and back on June 25th, between 2:30 and 4:30 p.m. He also tried to give away a mattress on a resale website, presumably the mattress on which he'd murdered Mackenzie, eventually giving it to a woman who later recognized AJ on the news as the man who'd given it to her. His digital footprint had caught up with him, and he'd have to face the consequences. During the search of his electronic devices, the police had allegedly discovered pornographic imagery of minors.
Salt Lake County District Attorney Sim Gill says 31-year-old Ayoola Ajayi sexually assaulted another woman in March of 2018. A court document states Ajayi invited the woman over for dinner. After the two ate while watching TV, the woman alleges Ajayi sexually assaulted her, causing significant pain.
He was charged with 19 counts of sexual exploitation of a minor, but these charges were later dropped. On October 7, 2020, AJ pleaded guilty to first-degree aggravated murder and third-degree desecration of a human body.
Are you entering your guilty pleas today of your own free will and choice?
Guilty, Your Honor. In exchange, the prosecutors took the death penalty off the table. He was instead sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. He was also charged with the 2018 kidnapping and assault of the woman he'd met on Tinder, who'd come forward when his name was released in the news in connection with Mackenzie's death. For this, he was sentenced to a further 1 to 15 years in prison.
The man accused of killing University of Utah student Mackenzie Lueck last year is now selling his home.
This house has gone up for sale, and after what happened last summer, they'll always look at this house differently.
Every time I come by, you can't help but remember what happened there.
And even though the neighborhood has quieted down in the 8 months since this house became a crime scene for murder, for neighbors, this home will always be different.
There's a black mark in your mind when you look at the house that kind of just reminds you that something horrible happened. I was really surprised that it was for sale because I was under the understanding that they wanted to keep it rented to make funds to help pay the defense.
The listing online shows Ajayi wants $349,000 for the 1,800 square foot house. Investment opportunity, the description says. Cutest house on the block. The listing realtor declined to comment. For neighbors, this home will always be different, but Scott hopes the next owner will help change that.
Some new life, some positive energy and positive activity going on there. That would make, a change.
I did talk with the man who is currently renting the home. He said that he rented it from someone who's managing the property for Ayoola Ajayi. He did say that they disclosed to him what had happened there before he rented the home.
What happened was awful. I mean, it's a terrible case. I chose to not look at police reports, even though they said I could look at them if I wanted to.
But it was hard to miss today's news.
Mr. Ajayi burned Ms. Lewick's body, her clothing, and her belongings in an attempt to dispose of evidence of her murder.
Why Kenzie? What did she do to deserve this? Why burn half of her body?
I think we're all still in extreme shock. Even right now, I feel like I can call her and text her and she'll answer. I mean, we didn't get to say goodbye to our friend. This person stole our friend from us. So I don't know if we'll ever have closures.
Mackenzie's father, Greg, said, "My daughter, Mackenzie Lewick, was a sweet, amazing young lady with the world ahead of her. She was a kind-hearted person that cared about others. Now I will not have the opportunity to see her blossom in life." The prosecutor said this was murder for murder's sake, that Ayoola Ajayi had only wanted to know what it felt like to kill someone.
My life has been changed due to the selfish, premeditated decision you made on June 17, 2019. Instead of planning my daughter's graduation party, I planned her memorial.
Breaks my heart knowing that she died alone in such a scary place. Tragically, she won't be among the graduates next spring.
This feels like a nightmare that I can't wake up from, but unfortunately, it's reality.
Today, he remains in prison, and the Lewicks will never forget the bright daughter they lost. What do you think about this chilling story? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe, keep up with our channel, and we will see you very soon on The Decoder.